Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 39 of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. Today, we're joined by Dr. George Michalopoulos, Dr. David Traster, and Rachel Rosenberg. David and Rachel Rosenberg. What does the word authentic/authenticity mean to each of you? Rachel, you go first, then we'll go with George, then we'll go to David.
Real, vulnerable, truth.
Now, I've heard real, we've heard vulnerable, but we haven't heard truth before. And this is our 39th episode. So that's the first time somebody's actually said truth, Rachel. So you actually own that. You can patent it. Good work. George, how about you?
Well, in full disclosure, I think I told her to say truth, but yeah.
Nice.
So authentic, I feel is really honesty and truth is really what comes to my mind.
David?
To me, I use things with patients where I tell them to list out, the top 3 to 5 things that are most important to them. And then I had them list out the 3 to 5 things they do most every day. And when we find that the people where that matches are more happy with their lives and are able to enjoy things more, when it mismatches, it's not authentic to them, right? And so then all of a sudden people have more anxiety, more depression. And so to me, authentic is really just understanding what life means to you and what you want out of it and actually doing it.
Wow. Three great answers. And so let's get real for a second before we get into the interview. Start with Rachel first, then we'll go to David, then to George. Rachel, why do you feel so many people don't want to be the real, vulnerable, true self? Why do you feel people are so about putting their self over friends or over family or over, values and or morals? What do you think is driving sometimes some people to have that way of living their life?
I think that they self-protection, fear, and I also think that insecurity.
Very nice. David?
I think it's complex, and it's hard because everyone's unique. But at the same time, the way the brain develops the influences it gets over time, I think also people have different goals and motivations where we think we're perceiving the same thing as the next person, but everyone perceives things differently based on a lot of different factors.
George?
Well, I feel also too that when you say that people aren't authentic with themselves, is that what the question was, really?
Yes. Or why do they not want to be their authentic, true self?
Yeah, I think because they're scared. Maybe they have low self-esteem. They're very and we get a lot of that. And then there's other people that are, hey man, I'm all about me, and these are, which is fine too, as long as you don't crush somebody on the way to being all about you. I feel that's a good, like, being selfish in the best term of that word, like selfish to yourself. I mean, be honest and truthful to yourself, and people just can't do that. They have to pretend to be somebody else, and once they figure that out, though, their whole world will turn around.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get to the root of this amazing 3 individuals. How did you all come together? And Rachel, let's start with you. How did you meet Dr. George and Dr. David? And then from there, tell everybody a little bit about what you all are doing around concussions, around, CTE, around brain trauma, trying to help bring more awareness to this really horrible epidemic.
I started with learning how to snowboard way too late, and I'm very stubborn, and I smashed my head for 72 hours consecutively, just kept getting up, going up, down the hill again, and hitting solid ice. And I thought a helmet protected me, And it wasn't until 4 days after I came home from this vacation and things started not making sense. I didn't understand what was happening around me. And I only went to the hospital so that my mom would feel better, to have a CAT scan. And they said, we'll get back to you with the results in 45 minutes. And 45 seconds later, they were like, you have a traumatic subdural hematoma and it's fatal. And we're taking you to the trauma center and we're going to try to save your life. So in the end, I wasn't comfortable going the traditional route. And it was really based on a movie I had seen called Concussion. And it was, based on a true story of football players in the NFL. And the doctors weren't open to working with me unless I did as they were advising, which scared me. And I had suffered what they were calling a TIA weeks later after I was home. And that's when I pulled up a number, random business card, thank God, that somebody had given me of Dr. George. And I literally pulled over to the side of the road. I was driving. I could only go very short distances. And an hour and a half later, I was his patient.
George, what was it about Rachel's situation or her medical condition that made you want patient? At the same time, she talks a lot about you and your work, what you're about, your crusade. Talk to her a little bit about the authentic connection that was first made when Rachel showed up at your office.
Yeah. So I remember. First of all, every concussion is totally different. And what we do in our office is we, first of all, I'll get to know these patients like intimately, real well, and what type of work they do, what they believe in, and how authentically they want to get better. Quite honestly, and as some people, identify when they're chronically injured, and they go from doctor to doctor to doctor. That is their identity. I got a traumatic brain injury, and some people don't want to get better. I mean, like you can tell pretty quickly who really wants to get better and who doesn't. Some people are good actors, and some, they've definitely got injuries. But with Rachel was a very outgoing, active, businesswoman that couldn't even comprehend her sitting down or going to bed early or relaxing for a few hours at a time. She wanted to be on the go all the time. And so when she came in, our exam, we approach things a little bit differently. We've had patients that have come in exactly like Rachel, and they say, my head's spinning, I can't think, I can't focus, can't concentrate. And basically your brain really only needs to know a couple of things. Okay. It needs to know where you are in space. Okay. So you're a football player and you need to know where your hands are, obviously, to catch the ball, or you need to know where your legs are so you're not tripping over yourself all the time. And you also need to know where space is around you. And so if you're in a room and a bear breaks through the window, you can probably do two things: jump on the bed and let the bear probably maul you, or you can run out the door and lock the door as fast as you can. So you need to know your surroundings. And when those two things are working together in the right fashion, then you've got no issues. Okay. But there's three things that kind of calculate that. And one of them is your vision. And a lot of times, like Rachel, her vision was off. She says, I got blurred vision. Another one is your vestibular system, which senses linear and angular acceleration. So if we're in a car together and I say, hey, Marques, close your eyes, and I'm going to either slam the brakes on or speed up. So you should be able to tell without opening your eyes whether I sped up or slow down, right? Or I'm going to say, okay, we're going to turn right or left. Without opening your eyes, you should be able to tell if I turned right or left. And the reason is because there's this vestibular system that sends signals to your brain that'll cause a certain muscle to contract. And so that's the other calculating mechanism. And the last one is called your proprioceptive system, which is basically the force of gravity pulling you down. So when we find dysfunctions, like we did with Rachel, we just try to correct those. And our ideal, the second we correct them, and we try to get her to understand where she is in space and where space is around her, the symptoms hopefully go away pretty quickly. But there's a lot of things that she needs to do at home. There's a lot of things that we can do here because we've got some special and fancy equipment that we use. But other than that, these concussions should, if they're treated in the right manner, should not allow you to say habituate and go into another kind of alter the movement of or alter your brain chemistry and stuff like that. So you should be able to, and that's exactly what we did with Rachel. Rachel's exam was 3 hours long, like everybody else, but Rachel really had this motivation to get better too. So it makes my job easy.
David, talk a little bit more about, that was an interesting way of putting it. David, I'd like to hear from you as far as what are some of the things you have seen from individuals that have concussions. Like Dr. George says, sometimes people don't want to get better. They want to stay in a state of feeling sorry for themselves. And I know what that's like, not from that perspective, but from when I lost everything and had to restart my life, I authentically just believed somebody should come and save me. And once I realized that wasn't going to happen, I had to get my life together. And that's when things started happening for me in a positive direction. So David, what have you been seeing some of the work you're doing as a partner with Dr. George?
I think it comes down to belief systems play a primary role in our behavior. And what you believe is going to dictate your thoughts, your processing, and your behavior. And everyone's belief system, really, like I talked before, it depends on certain developmental factors. But once you believe it, and once that frame and schema is in your brain, it's really hard to disrupt that. So for example, I was sick for 10 years with Lyme disease. It took 7 years to diagnose it correctly. But even when that time period, I was more hesitant to go to certain practitioners versus others. And some of the people that actually helped me were people that I never thought would have ever helped me. And so I was actually, my own psychology and my own biases actually prevented me from seeing certain practitioners versus others. And, and you could look at that as authentic to as far as what's the truth of what was the best thing for me versus authentic at that time, my belief system, where it's going to lead me. And so in one way is people have to be open to the idea that if they get concussion, they can heal. When you look in the media, when you look online, there's a lot of information with concussions and CTE, and there's a lot of money going to that, which is positive, right? There's nothing negative about that. But there's not enough media or stories of people who do get better. And so the first step is really believing I can get better because I understand other people get better. The next step is understanding what's the best place that can do this for me. And then the hardest thing when it comes to authentic, if who wants to get better, right now, the best evidence for concussion, a lot of is exercises, rehab. And at the end of the day, like, it's not easy. It's not just popping a pill, or taking a shot. Like you have to have the motivation to go out and do the exercises. And some days be easier than other days. And sometimes you got to modify the exercises. And sometimes you got to go lighter and then stronger, And so it comes down to the willpower to actually have the initiative to do the work.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real for a second. I heard from all three of these amazing individuals that mindset played a major factor in your recovery process. We talk about that a lot, right? You have to authentically control your mindset. If you're in a negative mindset, you can shift it to a positive mindset. And I feel that is a major factor in, like David said, getting better. George, tell everybody a little bit more about the work you all are doing in the crusade trying to help athletes. We'll go with you, then we'll go to David, and we'll talk to Rachel, who was being an athlete when she had the unfortunate incident of the trauma that caused her to get to you. But George and David, what are you all trying to do to help is the crusade you are on? And again, Rachel, Concussion, Will Smith, great movie, seen it, love it. So, and again, Mike Webster, guys like that, I can really relate as a former NFL player to how guys have had to go through that horrible trauma. Like I know Tony Dorsett, really, really nice guy, but there's times where he doesn't remember his family or who they are or who's in the room with him. And so it's very difficult. What was his name? He played for the Baltimore Colts. John Mackey, who was a tight end. John suffered tremendous CTE and dementia and brain injuries, and he didn't know his wife. They were married for like 50 years and didn't know his wife at the end. So this is something important to me, Dr. George and Dr. David. So what are you all trying to do to help athletes? What is the crusade you are on?
Well, I think from our perspective, we hate to see concussions. Okay, so we don't want to see them. Our crusade right now is, for professional athletes too, but really we want to get to the young teams and say, hey, look, you need to do a real baseline test. You can't be doing these tests where you can actually memorize the answers, and if you're really smart, you can pass some of these tests that they do, these baseline tests that they have right now in the high school. Every high school does these baseline tests. And they say, look, here's your baseline score in ninth grade. You scored a 87 or whatever the baseline is, okay? And if you get a concussion or the trainer or the coach thinks that you have a concussion, they'll take you off and they'll say, okay, go rest for a day or two. And you can go back only if you meet or beat that score, that baseline score. And a lot of these kids, what they do is they don't beat the score, so they miss a week, then they miss another week, then they miss another week. Okay, so then in the next year, they kind of figured out, even from the pro athletes, because these guys used to do the same thing. What they would do is they kind of sandbag the test next year, because you got to take the test every year, and they purposely get a lower score. Okay, so now, whether they got a concussion or not, they can actually beat that score and be allowed to play. And they don't realize what the negative consequences would be by doing that. But as far as what we want to do, the tests that we do are totally objective. You cannot cheat these tests, okay? And it's not like a subjective test where we say, okay, how do you feel? And it says, I feel great. Okay, there's very little subjectivity to these tests. These are very objective tests. And our goal is, look, let's find objectively what is wrong with you. Are your eyes jumping off the target? If the football's coming and you have this dysfunctional eye movement and it hits you right in the hands and you drop the ball, and people are going, why did you drop the ball? Well, probably because you have some messed up visual issue or something. But the big thing is for us, we don't want to see these kids with concussions. Okay, we can help them. We've done that for years. But the big thing is we want to train them so they're so reflexively fast and their brain is firing on all cylinders, so they prevent themselves from getting a concussion. So if some guy's coming and we expand their peripheral vision a tiny bit, so they see the guy coming from the side, then he can react quicker, so he's not going to get hurt as bad, or he might not get hurt at all. Whereas if the guy's just, slugging along and some guy nails him and he gets a concussion, now this is, something that we can do with sports performance enhancement, objective baseline testing. So we know that on day one, look, here are your numbers. This is a number. This is an objective number. If you get a concussion, we're going to repeat these tests, okay? And we're going to see these numbers are a little bit lower, lower, lower. Our goal is let's get you back to where you were, because the kids that come in now and the pro athletes that come in now, we do all these tests and they go, man, this is fantastic. What was I before? And I go, did you ever get these tests done? And they said, no. So they have no idea what they were before. So that's now their baseline, because we don't know what these before numbers are.
David?
Yeah, I think the key, like you talked about, is first is baseline. You know your blood pressure, you might know your heart rate, you might know your blood sugar numbers. People actually know the function of their brain, or even where to begin with that. And so I think as time goes on, we're not the only people doing it, is trying to create what we call biomarkers for brain health. When you look at concussion, we break down concussions in a lot of different ways. but one way you could have cognitive issues or cognitive fatigue. Another way you could have vestibular issues or dizziness. Another way you could have eye movement issues or double vision or blurry vision. Another way is you could have migraines or headaches, or even abdominal migraines where people start throwing up or have stomach pain. Some have neck pain or whiplash injuries. Sometimes you have anxiety or mood disorders. Sometimes you have sleep disorders, or sometimes a combination of them all. And so when you look at, and that doesn't include everything, you could have movement disorders. And so when you look at concussion, you need to be trained and you need an assessment that really covers all your bases, because everyone is unique based on the status of their brain before the concussion, their actual hit, and then what they did after the concussion. So step one is we need more baselines of people when they're healthy, or people even pre and post season to say, look, you didn't get concussion that we know of, but all these subconcussive hits decrease your brain function. Let's take 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the off season and actually improve your brain function so that you're ready to go and you have a less prevention of injury. Or if you break your arm and you're out for the season, while you're rehabbing, let's say training the other arm and the good arm, you could also train your reaction time. You could train your eye movements. You could train other things neurologically and take advantage of the off time if you're a professional athlete. So you can actually be better in a lot of things neurologically while you wait for another body part to heal.
And Rachel, as you hear Dr. George and Dr. David talk about these things, you have been an athlete in your life. You were doing an athletic event when you got hurt. How do you feel now hearing this information, and how are you going to continue to be an advocate and a champion for Dr. George and Dr. David on their crusade, like they both said, to educate people, to get more baseline testing, to start getting more concrete information to help things continue to push forward in this pursuit of trying to reduce concussions?
I mean, today's a big part of it. It's just like both that they have shared about just sharing the information, because that's my experience has been people think that you can't get better. And I can't tell you how many people I meet. I talk about it all the time, and they'll say, oh, my husband had a brain injury, however many years ago. He doesn't work. He's home, maybe on disability. Like, they don't even know that this is an option. And that's my goal. I mean, and just to show in what I'm doing since the accident, I mean, my life drastically changed, and it's ongoing. I mean, Dr. George has given me ongoing things, and I have episodes, and, he's given me tools to help me get through that. But it's just also just really showing people what's possible. My goal last year when I reached out to you, Marques, was to do a TED Talk. And now I'm working on a lot of other things. And one of them that Marques and I spoke about this morning is I wanted to create something with my design background while I'm focusing on empowerment, coaching, and everything else, where to create the awareness and also to give back to, for more research and just to get to just more awareness so that, these amazing people exist and it's possible. And it's been very frustrating because I have some pretty well-known people who have had strokes and they're just like, they were sharing, not everybody's even open, similar to when you had the Lyme's disease. They're not even open to going down this route. And it's very frustrating because I know that it could help them, and they're not recovering because of their belief system.
Right. Well, everybody, the authentic tip. Well, actually, I'm not going to give it to you just yet. Dr. George, David, where can people reach out to you? You have a website, information. If people who have heard this amazing, informative, and I myself was educated, interview, how can they get in touch with you for more information, to find out more about you all's services, to be able to help them with when it comes to concussions, baseline testing, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, our website is neurologicwellnessinstitute.com. And we have 3 locations. We have 2 in Chicago, one in downtown, one in the suburbs in Wooddale, and we have another location in Florida in Boca Raton. And pretty also, we have, like, a lot of people from around the world fly in. Some pretty high profile athletes, and they fly in from all over the world. So, and we can do intensives 2-3 times a day. So they can learn a lot about that on the website, neurologicwellnessinstitute.com.
Yeah, and I would just add, when it comes to concussions, it's almost like you might break your arm and you're not getting your arm cured. They might reset the arm and heal it and put the arm in the best position to heal. But in an X-ray, you might always see a bump, right? You might always see the break. And concussions, I think we have to look at it the same way. Is right now, hopefully we'll have a cure, but right now it's not about curing concussions. It's about giving the brain the best environment to heal and continue to push the healing in the correct direction at the right speed, and whether that's nutritional or whether that's through exercise or whether that's through another method, it's about understanding what can we do for the brain to promote the most healing environment, both physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, etc. And that's the area that's going to create the most healing for each individual. And understanding each individual and what their needs are is really the art in trying to get people better.
Ladies and gentlemen, now the authentic tip of this great interview. Be open to change. Be open to information. Don't shut out or stonewall things that you don't know anything about. Just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it can't help you. I just learned today, it's not about trying to cure concussions. It's about trying to give the brain the best position to heal and the best opportunity so hopefully it doesn't happen again. Nothing's for certain. But again, the information I heard today, it made me more enlightened to the different things you can do to heal. And again, go out, if you're an athlete, young, middle school, high school, pop, it doesn't matter. If you're an athlete, right? Go out and get baseline tests to understand where you are from the start. This way, if something happens to you, you can test yourself to see where you used to be, where you are now. If you get tested after the fact, you don't have the right baseline from. And I'm gonna tell you right now, authentically, I never got that. Never did I have that. I wish I could go back in time like Doc Brown and Marty McFly in the DeLorean and make that so, but it's not gonna happen. So learn from me, Dr. George, Dr. David, and Rachel. What I'm doing is trying to educate you on how to become the best version of you. But I always say, you don't have to be the best to do your best. Again, this was episode number 39 of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.